Before we come to Prime Minister's questions, I would like to point out that the British Sign Language interpretation of proceedings is available to watch on Parliament Live TV. We now start with questions to the Prime Minister. Nick Smith.
Number one, please, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I'm sure the whole House will want to join me in wishing you, all members of staff, a Merry Christmas and indeed to all members, and a Happy New Year. And members from across the House will also want to join me in sending our warmest wishes to all our armed forces and all members of the emergency services, health and care workers, and especially those who will be working over Christmas, and not least those in our national mission to get boosted now. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, can I congratulate the Prime Minister and his wife on the birth of his baby daughter? Last week was Crime Week. Was it a success for you, Prime Minister?
Yes. I'm very grateful and I thank him for his kind words. And yes, it was, Mr. Speaker, because last week we showed that we are not only the party that is putting in the resources to fight crime, with 10,000 more police already recruited, but we are the party that is finally getting tough on the drugs gangs that blight the lives of children and communities up and down this country, and we won't tolerate middle-class drugs use any more than any other kind of drugs use, Mr. Speaker.
Wishing the Prime Minister and his family a happy Christmas. Mr. Speaker, last Christmas I joined the charity Seva Day in wrapping Christmas presents at Durga Bhawan Temple. I delivered a small number of the thousands of gifts the Hindu community had donated for children and adults across Samwell. Will the Prime Minister join me in thanking Seva Day, Deepak, Mandu and Reena, who I'll be joining again this Friday at West Bromwich Sri Krishna Mandir?
Yes, I thank my honourable friend for raising the work of Seva Day and for all the people of West Bromwich, Hindu community, who do make an incredible contribution to this country. And I'm delighted that the charity is again distributing donated gifts. Thank you to everyone involved, and particularly to my honourable friend for her efforts.
We now come to the Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Can I also wish you, everybody who works in this House and all members, a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And can I also send my congratulations to the Prime Minister and his wife on the birth of their daughter, and join the Prime Minister in supporting our armed forces and all those on the front line. Mr. Speaker, there were 200,000 Omicron infections on Monday. That's doubling every 2 or 3 days, and the NHS could be overwhelmed. So I want to start by encouraging everyone listening to this session to get their jabs and boosters. It's the best way to protect themselves, the NHS and their loved ones. Given the seriousness of the situation, does the Prime Minister agree that the 100 Conservative members who voted against Plan B measures last night voted against steps which are necessary to protect the NHS and to protect lives?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The government is taking a balanced and a proportionate approach to dealing with the pandemic, and the House voted through Plan B, I think, with Conservative votes, Mr. Speaker, and we will continue with the massive booster rollout, to which he is a late convert. Since Friday, when I decided that we had to accelerate the booster programme in view of the data about Omicron, we've cut the timetable in half. Mr. Speaker, Monday was the biggest vaccination Monday in the history of this country, and yesterday was the second biggest vaccination achievement by the NHS ever. More than 500,000 jabs delivered, and the campaign continues to grow. I want to thank absolutely everybody involved. I want to thank all the British public for coming forward to get boosted now.
Mr. Speaker, we all hope that, combined with the booster programme, Plan B will be sufficient to prevent the NHS from being overwhelmed. Nobody wants to see further restrictions. But the Prime Minister has quite rightly not ruled anything out. So can I take this opportunity to make clear to the Prime Minister that if further votes are needed to save lives and protect the NHS, Labour MPs will follow my leadership and we will always put the national interest first. Can I ask the Prime Minister to get his House in order so he can say the same about the members behind him?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, if further measures are needed, as the House will understand, if further regulation is needed, of course this House will have a further say. As for following his leadership, Mr. Speaker, they wibbled-wobbled over Plan B, they wibble-wobbled over quarantine, and if we listened to him, Mr. Speaker, we wouldn't even have the vaccine rollout because we would have remained in the European Medicines Agency. True, and we wouldn't have opened up on July the 19th, Mr. Speaker. We would have remained in lockdown. That's the reality, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, let me put that straight back in its box. The Labour Party showed the leadership yesterday that the Prime Minister lacked. Mr. Speaker, if it wasn't for Labour votes, his government wouldn't have been able to introduce vital health measures we need to save lives and protect the NHS. So weak is his leadership. His own MPs were wrong to vote against basic public health measures. But I can understand why they're angry with him. After all, the Health Secretary said this summer that relaxations of restrictions were irreversible. They weren't. Only last week the government...
Order. I've been tempted by both of you a little bit too much. I think it's Christmas. That's the only reason you're going to remain. Prime Minister. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, only last week the government was saying Plan B measures were not required. They are. Just like the rail revolution for the North. No one will have to sell their homes for social care, just like no tax rises. It's overpromise after overpromise until reality catches up. Does the Prime Minister understand why his own MPs no longer trust him?
Mr. Speaker, there he goes again. He comes to this House pompously claiming that he wants to rise above party politics and support the efforts of the nation in delivering the vaccine rollout, and then he talks endlessly about party politics and plays political games. I think what the people of this country can see is as a result of what this government has done, with the decisions we've taken, the tough decisions that we've taken to deliver which he ducked, Mr. Speaker, to deliver the fastest vaccine rollout in Europe and now the fastest booster rollout. We now have, Mr. Speaker, the fastest growing economy in the G7 and more jobs today, 500,000 more jobs today than there were when the pandemic began. That is Conservative government in action, Mr. Speaker. We deliver, they complain.
Mr. Speaker, the only person undermining public confidence is sitting right there. Here's the problem. His MPs are wrong to vote against basic public health measures, but they are not wrong to distrust him. Last week, the Conservative member for the Forest of Dean asked, why should people at home listening to the Prime Minister do things that people working in Downing Street are not prepared to do? Tory MP. The Conservative member for Shipley last week asked the Prime Minister, can he give me any reason at all why I shouldn't tell my constituents to treat these rules the same way that Downing Street treated these rules last year? Now, the Prime Minister's had a week to come up with a good answer. Has he done so?
Mr. Speaker, the answer is very, very clear, and it's there in what the public are doing, Mr. Speaker, because they can see that the government is getting on with delivering on their priorities, not just on the economy, Mr. Speaker, but above all on delivering the fastest booster rollout in Europe. And he's fond of these European comparisons, Mr. Speaker, but we've done almost double the percentage of any other European country. We've boosted boosted 86% of the over 80s in this country, 91% of those aged 75 to 79. That is an astonishing achievement, and I think that is what the people of this country are focused on, Mr. Speaker. And rather than the partisan trivia that he continually raises, when frankly he has a case to answer himself.
I think that's no, he hasn't come up with a good answer. For weeks now, he claims that no rules were broken. He claims he didn't know what was happening in his own house last Christmas. I don't believe him. His MPs don't believe him, and nor do the British public. He's taking the public for fools, and it's becoming dangerous, because from today, anyone who tests positive for coronavirus faces a second Christmas in isolation. It will be heartbreaking for families across the country. The message from the government has to be, we know that following the rules won't be easy this Christmas, but it is necessary. Can the Prime Minister not see that he has no hope of regaining the moral authority to deliver that difficult message if he cannot be straight with the British public about the rule breaking in Downing Street last Christmas?
Mr. Speaker, I've repeatedly answered that question before, and as he knows, a report is being delivered to me by the Cabinet Secretary into exactly what went on. He might explain why there are pictures of him quaffing beer, Mr. Speaker. In a way, I mean, we haven't. I think what the British public want us all to do, frankly, and what they want us all to do is focus on the matter in hand and continue to deliver the vaccine rollout in the way that we are. And I think it is an absolutely fantastic thing that people are now coming forward in the way that we are, the way that they are. 45% of people over 18 have now had a vaccine, Mr. Speaker, and I thank our amazing staff. I thank the NHS. I thank all the GPs. I thank the GPs, and we are. Well, you blocked the investment in there. Mr. Speaker, they wouldn't vote for it. They wouldn't vote for investment in our NHS, Mr. Speaker. They wouldn't do it. I thank them for what they're doing. I can tell the House that we're now speeding things up by allowing people to avoid the 15-minute delay after they've been vaccinated, which I hope will encourage even more people to come forward.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the virus is spreading once again, and lives and livelihoods are at risk. The British public are looking for a Prime Minister with the trust and the authority to lead Britain through the crisis. Instead, we're burdened with the worst possible Prime Minister at the worst possible time. They're shouting now. Where were they in the lobby last night? His own MPs have had enough. They won't defend him. They won't turn up to support him. And if he proposes them, they won't vote for basic public health measures. So at this time of national effort, the Labour Party stood up, shown the leadership that the Prime Minister can't, and put the health and security of the British people first.
On. This is silly because I can't hear the question. I will hear the question. I don't think we need any more help from this front bench. I'm just dealing with this corner first before I come back. Can I just say, I understand it's the last PMQs and we're going to be coming back in the new year, but I do need to hear the question. And it may take a long time, but I will hear it. So please, I want to get through questions. I want you all to get away for Christmas. At this stage, you won't. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the Prime Minister is so weak that without Labour votes last night, vital public health measures wouldn't have got through. But this country can't... Says it's not true. Oh, God. I haven't got... It's not true. He's so socially distant from the truth. He thinks that that's not true. I don't know where to start. We better press on. We can't go on with a Prime Minister who's too weak to lead. So will the Prime Minister take time this Christmas to look in the mirror and ask himself whether he has the trust and authority to lead this country?
Mr. Speaker, Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. We won that vote last night with Conservative votes, as I've told the House. I respect the feelings and I respect the anxieties that colleagues have about. Of course I do. I respect and understand the anxieties, the legitimate anxieties that colleagues have about restrictions on their liberty. But I believe, and on the liberty of people. But I believe that the approach that we're taking is balanced and proportionate and right for this country. And let me tell you, Mr. Speaker, let me tell the House about he talks about leadership, some of the decisions, the tough decisions that I've had to take. I had to decide to stay out of the European ventilator scheme, so we had our own ventilator challenge, which he then ridiculously attacked. I decided to go ahead of the rest of Europe, with the vaccine rollout, Mr. Speaker, which would have been impossible if we'd listened to him. I decided to go ahead with opening up our society and our economy on July the 19th, which he opposed, Mr. Speaker, which he opposed. And frankly, if we'd listened to him, never forget, we would not now have the fastest economic growth of the G7. It's because we took those courageous steps, Mr. Speaker, that we now have 500,000 more people in work now than there were when the pandemic began. And yesterday I saw 1.2 million job vacancies, Mr. Speaker. That is what Conservative governments do. They create employment. They create business opportunities. And above all, Mr. Speaker, we vaccinate, they vacillate. They jabber, we jab. They play party politics, Mr. Speaker, and we get on with the job.
I'm amazed. I'm absolutely amazed that some of you wanted to catch my eye. Obviously you don't. Thanks for that. It's making my life easier. So don't be shocked when I wasn't going to put you in for that special question today. Let's come to the man of the moment, Dr.